So I tried out iOS 11 and the new live feature using long exposures. Now I'm a huge fan of using slow shutter cam to do my waterfall photos, as you've seen in previous videos. So being able to do this natively in iOS is a really cool concept, really cool idea. And I wanted to give it a try. So I tested it out in Amesbury, Massachusetts at the Powwow River, where it has two waterfalls. One is a nice, steady, gradual waterfall. The other one is a little bit chaotic, but it's a good testing ground to see how well iOS 11 is going to fare against slow shutter cam. So let's dive deep into my iPhone photos. Let's take a look. Okay, so here we are in my iPhone. Let's go to Photos, and we are going to go to the Waterfalls folders. I have it separated into Upper Falls and Lower Falls. Here we go. Let's take a look at the Upper Falls first. This photo was taken with slow shutter cam. And I could tell because when I swipe up, it only has the information for the geolocation. It doesn't give me the option for long exposure or anything like that. So it's an overall good photo. Got the blur captured very nicely. And the items that are in motion are properly blurred. Anything that is still is actually in good detail. Nice. So now let's take a look at the photo that was taken using the live feature. We're going to swipe up, and we're going to select long exposure. Now on the surface, it doesn't look bad. It's actually pretty good. It's identical to the slow shutter cam version. And this is awesome. Apple has done a really good job with their first attempt. And this is, if you're going to share this right now, you could share it on Instagram, Facebook, or any other social media place. However, if you're looking for the best detail possible, this is where it sort of falls apart. When we zoom in, we see that the water blur is great, but the items that are motionless are not. And anything that's captured that within the water is starting to blur to the point where it's the detail is not there. So you can see the rocks are not detailed, the stick is not as detailed. When you compare that to slow shutter cam, you can see that the motionless items still preserve their detail. And let's go ahead and take a look one more time to compare. Now, this is a very even waterfall. It's not that big of a deal if we didn't get that detail. However, when we have more complex waterfalls, and let's take a look at the lower falls, this is where things start to fall apart. Now, I photographed this over a period of several days. The water levels fluctuated. And I want to show you what this is like. So here we are, slow shutter cam. Just going to check that. Yep, that's slow shutter cam. And we're going to zoom in on the waterfall portion. Now, it was a very bright day. This is about noontime, and the trees weren't giving a very even shadow, which is why you're seeing these splotches of light. But look at the rocks. We have great detail in the waterfall. You can see the lines differentiating from the rocks where it's cascading. And we're preserving the detail of the leaves that are underneath the water. Let's take a look at the same photo when it was done with the live photo. We're going to make that a long exposure. And now we're going to zoom in. The rock detail is very blurred, and the detail of the leaves is essentially gone. And because this was taken at such a bright day, the water blur itself is starting to crimp. And it's still overall good photo, but if you're looking to crop, you're going to lose detail. Whereas slow shutter cam, you don't have as bad of a crimping. I could leave the exposure on longer with slow shutter cam to alleviate that. So I have that as an advantage. But I mean, more importantly, the detail in the rock as the water cascades down it is very different from what you have in the live version. Now let's go a little bit deeper and get a little closer to the waterfall. So this is slow shutter cam. Just want to double check. Yep. We have great detail in the rocks. We have great detail in the leaves that are underneath the water. And we have a very good blur. Now let's take the live version, turn that into a long exposure. And again, we're losing the detail in the flow of water. We're losing the detail underneath the water. Now here you can see that the leaves stuck in the corner of the rock are preserved, but you could see that line differentiating between the water blur and the rock blur. It doesn't look natural. And so you're losing a lot of that detail. And so the algorithm that calculates the long exposure is getting a little confused. But for a first time attempt for Apple, not bad. Again, compare that to what we have with slow shutter cam. We have a great detail in the water blur. We have great detail in the leaves underneath the water. The blur here between the water and the still objects is much, much better. Looks much more natural. So there you have it. iOS 11 does a really good job, but not quite there yet. Slow shutter cam is still the app of choice if you're looking for exquisite detail and good waterfall flow long exposure simulation. Couldn't find the words there for a second. iOS 11 is good, and I'm not going to take anything away from it because it is the first generation. It's the first time they've accomplished this. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's good if you're out scouting new areas to photograph and just taking test shots to see where you're going to photograph at a later time. Or it's just fine if you're looking to do casual photography. It's good enough for Facebook, it's good enough for Instagram. But if you're looking to print these photos from your iPhone, then you got to go with slow shutter cam. There's many more options for blur control. It does a great job of distinguishing between moving objects and stationary objects. So my personal opinion, iOS good, slow shutter cam better. Thank you for watching. And I hope this video was helpful for you. Go ahead and check out some other videos where I do use slow shutter cam and Camera Plus to do long exposure photography. And, if you want to hear more iPhone photography talk, Go ahead and check out our audio podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, or any podcasting device that you want. Just do a search for A Tiny Shutter and give it a listen. And if you want to share your photos, go ahead and check out our Facebook group. The links are below.